the Joy Luck Club. If you asked yourself, I bet you'd say, yeah, I have a story in me. What is the reason you have a story in you? You have a way of looking at the world that's different from anybody else. There really was a Joy Luck Club, and it was a group of Chinese friends who had immigrated to this country, and they got together. They played mahjong, and they played cards, and they cooked Chinese food at midnight, and we kids would get up and get some of the food. So we grew up Joy Luck. That's very ordinary words to me. I wrote letters when I was a kid. I gave myself a different name, Effie Mae Hoodwinkle. I don't know why I chose that name. Effie Mae Hoodwinkle had many adventures. She could fly. Starting at about the age of 8, I used to read the thesaurus. I remember this one word that I thought was the most exciting word that day, and it was precipitous. And what I could see with that word was a sense of danger and my standing on the edge of a cliff and falling. I always grew up with this sense of danger, I think, because my mother had so many warnings. I had to be careful crossing the street. And she said, you don't watch out, somebody to run you over, smash you flat, just like one of those pom-pom fish, 2 eyes, both one side of your face. And it's a horrible image, but that's how she would say things, very visceral, very almost violent imagery. The first time I entered a library, it was this giant brick building. I walked in and the ceilings were huge. The room echoed, and there were so many books there. There was a book in my adolescence called Jane Eyre. She was a little girl like me who seemed to be misunderstood by a lot of people, and she seemed to have no friends. And I felt my mother was like that step-aunt that Jane Eyre had. My mother, she had been my ally. She'd been the one who protected me the most. And she was also my enemy. She was the one who could wound me with any little thing she would say. Oh, not so good, or you should have practiced, why did you get an A minus? They would be so wounding, and I felt I could never satisfy her. I could never, meet her expectations, so why should I even try? I had taken an IQ test when I was 6 years old, and the psychologist gave the results to my parents, and she said I could become a doctor. And I believed that as well. It never occurred to me that I should challenge it until I was out of high school. And I realized that I didn't have to take pre-med. I could become an English major. I look back and there's no one moment where I said, oh, I should be a writer. Everything in my life starts with confusion, and that's good. So the confusion is that I started off writing one story, and then I wrote another one, and I wrote another one. And then at the end, I had this mess of 16 stories. My editor looked at them, and she said, they're about mothers and daughters. It was as though the craft of writing had tricked me into thinking about things I hadn't thought about. And that's what I think writing is about, discovering things that you never could express. Here's a story about a secret and something a mother never told her daughter that was so important. Now her mother is dead. And this is a girl who never found herself because she was trying to live up to the expectations of mother she didn't really know. The story about Su Yuan leaving her girls behind, the twin baby girls, that had some basis in my mother's life. She left behind 3 daughters in China. And I realized that I had to understand more of what that was. And when I started to imagine and put myself into that time and into that family and what her circumstances were, I began to understand those warnings.